What's going on, you guys? TBR here, back yet again with another King of Fighters All-Star video. And in today's video, we are going to be doing the final 4 AM breakdown of an update of 2021, and I could not be any more excited about that until I realized that it's just going to continue into 2022 endlessly, because they never stop with the banners and the updates and the banners and the updates. Anyway, we are going to be breaking down the latest update in today's video, but before we get into all of that and more, make sure if you guys haven't already done so and you enjoy daily King of Fighters All-Star content such as this, that you smash that like button and subscribe. And without further ado, cue the intro. Now, of course, as always, for those of you out there who keep up with these breakdown videos, if there is a specific topic or specific thing that you are interested in hearing me yammer on about, timestamps are active, and the chapter functionality is also going to be active as a result, so you guys can go ahead and easily skip to the most important part for you. But without further ado, guys, we're going to go ahead and get into this stuff. We're going to move a little bit quick today because I don't want this to be an hour-long video, so let's go ahead and get into the update breakdown for the final update of 2021. Let's go. All right, you guys, so leading off here, we're going to talk about the addition of the 2002 story mode. So as you guys can see here, we are in the story chapters, and 2002 story mode has officially been made live. And this is a big addition because, as always, whenever we get new story mode, we are going to have a ton of free-to-play rubies to acquire, as well as some awesome in-game items. So make sure that you guys are playing through this for the first time, especially with these banners going on right now, if you need some extra rubies in order to pull for your favorite boss syndrome fighter. But definitely make sure that you guys do this. Awesome addition, albeit a little bit late. Alright guys, so next up here we have the cheering event, and this event is interesting. I'm not necessarily sure though if it's a good interesting. So basically the way that this works is the first time that you log into the game after the update, you are randomly going to be selected for a team, either Team Nakaruru or Team Hotaru. Once you get selected onto that team, every time you do the following two things here, you are going to be able to earn points towards a global pool of points for your respective team, and by the end of the event, whoever had the most points on either team is going to win the win-loss rewards. And you'll also have individual rewards that you'll be able to earn for yourself, which is going to include a lot of really nice stuff here, including a lot of rubies. But one thing that really sticks out to me, if you take a look here, is you have this countdown event FES fighter selector ticket, and you're actually going to be able to pick up a maximum amount of 2 of these in this mileage. But as you guys can see, this is going to allow you to either pick Nakaruru, Hotaru, or Elizabeth. In my opinion, if you don't have Hotaru already, then you'll probably want to at least have her because she's an excellent striker for things such as Spider Robot. But of the 3 characters here, in my opinion, Elizabeth is the best. So that is the best standalone character of this pool, but it comes down to what you want to do. However, that's the way I would look at it. I think if you just need a standalone Starlight user, then definitely Elizabeth is going to be the best option. Otherwise, Hotaru makes an excellent striker for your chill strikers for your things such as Spider Robot. So that's pretty much what you're looking at there, but you do get 2 of those in here, so that's pretty cool. In fact, the last reward here, as you guys can see, is actually going to be a memory selector. So you're basically going to be able to get the fighter, and you're going to be able to get a memory. So that's pretty darn cool. So in general, you guys, that's what you're looking at with this. There's really not a whole lot to talk about here. As you can see, there are going to be a ton of different rubies in here for this thing. So this thing's pretty cool. I just wish that it would allow you to pick your team, because I could foresee a lot of people out there that are fans of these characters. Like, I know for a fact there's a few people on my Discord that were definitely wanting to pick one side or the other. So it's unfortunate that they designed it this way, but maybe they figured that if they didn't make it this way, then probably Nakaruru would win in a landslide more than likely, just based on popularity of the 2 characters. So usually in gacha games, whenever these types of events come around, everybody just flocks to whatever they think the winning team is going to be. But in general, you guys, there are a ton of really cool rewards on here. Like I said, you're going to get a lot of rubies just for playing through this stuff. And again, all you really got to do is stuff that you're already going to be doing, which is the Rush Dungeon and the Roulette event. So not anything too crazy there. Overall, a pretty solid little event for the most part. However, I would have liked to have seen us be able to pick our own side, but I digress. We also have the New Year's Greeting login bonus, which is going to net you all these items here for logging in for 5 days. Yeah, it's kind of boring. Moving on. The next thing that I would like to talk about is the New Year Roulette event. So as you guys can see, this is going to be quite a bit different from our usual roulettes. Usually when it comes to these roulettes, a lot of the time they are going to be themed around a character. But this time around, as you guys can see, that is not going to be the case. And in fact, this roulette is going to be tied into some of the other events going on right now. So let's go ahead and talk about it. So first and foremost, when it comes to the roulette itself, the wheel is structurally going to be the same as what we're come to expect from the rest of the roulettes. However, like I said, this is not going to be centered around a character, so you're not going to see any souls or memories or the character or the card or anything like that. Instead, as you guys can see, you're going to get all of these different items, but also these pouches. Now, these pouches are what's important. If you go ahead and take a look here, these pouches are actually going to contain all these items here, which is definitely going to be welcome considering the fact that you got rare enhancement hammers in there, as well as plenty of the ore, which is always going to be a good thing. But the main thing here is going to be these New Year coins. So basically, these New Year coins you are going to want to take into the crafting menu, and we'll talk about that here momentarily. And you can go ahead and craft a couple of different items. So as you guys can see, you're going to be able to craft these two different things here. So first off, you can craft one of these platinum set card selectors during the event period, and you are going to need 1,000 of these coins, so it is quite expensive. However, you are going to be able to select any one of these set cards of your choosing from the unified card banner, so not anything too crazy here. For most people, this might end up being a fodder pick, but for a lot of new players out there that are still trying to maybe complete a set or don't even have a set started, this is definitely going to be a welcome addition, so good stuff there. And then these boxes here are actually going to be your Star and Moon Imprint Stone Crafting Material Mystery boxes, which are going to include a ton more ore as well as these cores. So in general, this stuff is definitely going to be worth crafting. However, it is going to require you to be spinning on that wheel quite a bit, but the nice thing about this is they actually went ahead and they tied this into the rush dungeon, so you're actually going to be able to pick up extra tickets for this from the rush dungeon event, which we are about to talk about. So basically what they did with this roulette is they tied it into a couple of different events, and they made it almost a must play in my opinion, because honestly, you guys, there is a ton of value in picking these up, not just from what is in here, but obviously you can also go in and craft those boxes for that ore. So in general, I think that this is a really solid roulette. It isn't necessarily going to be something that is better than maybe a roulette with a new character. However, I definitely think that this is really cool, and I like that they are going this route with this one this time around. At least it changes up the formula with these roulettes a little bit, so that's always going to be a welcome change. But with all that being said, I guess the next thing we should probably talk about is the Rush Dungeon event itself, and go ahead and see what it is that we are going to be able to acquire there, as well as that exchange shop. So let's take a look. So as you guys can see, the Rush Dungeon event is going to be structurally the same as what we've come to expect, meaning that you are definitely not going to want to start investing a bunch of AP into this thing until the final stage opens up, at which point you can go ahead and get your grind on, but definitely don't be wasting your AP on these first two chapters. Always wait for the final one to open up, just so you can min-max on your rewards. Now, when it comes to what this is looking like under the hood, pretty much exactly what we've come to expect. As you guys can see, not much has changed. These are going to be the characters and the cards this time around that you are going to want to use in order to increase your gains, but that's pretty much what you're looking at there. So the biggest thing with these rush dungeons is always going to be the exchange shop, and luckily, you guys, this time around, the overall exchange shop structure has been completely overhauled. This is all new stuff, and it's looking really solid, you guys. I'm very happy with this one this time around. As you guys can see, we have a new set card that we're going to talk about, but we also have a ton of different rewards from what we're normally used to. However, I do find it funny that we have the unified banner tokens on here for both the fighters and the cards. If you needed any more evidence that that banner or those banners are dead, well, there you go. I get the feeling that those banners are pretty much have gone the way of the dinosaur and they're not coming back. So now when it comes to the card set, The interesting thing here is you can actually buy up to 3 sets of this, and I think you should definitely do so. The reason why I think so is this is actually a gold gain set. So as you guys can see, and it's really irrelevant outside of the gold gain part of the effects because this is not a set you're going to use for anything outside of this, but increasing your gold gain by 20% when clearing a stage is phenomenal. So this is a really, really solid set. This is going to be a set you're going to want 3 copies a piece of, just so that way you can go ahead and beef up your gold gain team just that much more. So I definitely recommend that you guys get this thing and make sure that you get all 3 sets because that's going to be a lot of value. Now when it comes to the tokens, there's value there, especially if you're a beginner or an intermediate. However, if you're a veteran, probably something you'll end up skipping, but it's going to be up to you on how much you're grinding on this thing. I get the feeling most people are probably going to prioritize these because they're very expensive if you want all 3 sets. So whatever you have left over, you can go ahead and parlay into some of these other items. For me personally, I always like to pick up the rare enhancement hammers first, as well as the plus capsules, but you'll also notice that we have these auto clear ticket mystery boxes here for the first time, and these are going to have not only normal auto clear tickets, but also auto clear tickets for Chapter of Fight and Epic Quest. So in general, you guys, this is a phenomenal exchange shop by the standard set by Netmarble for these different rush dungeons, so I definitely think that you should be grinding on this thing, but like I said, you'll want to wait until the final chapter opens up because you want to make sure you min-max on your rewards, and that's also going to be, according to what they said in those notes yesterday, that's also going to be where we can pick up those roulette tickets, so that's another thing to keep in mind. So yeah, here in the next day or two, we can start grinding on this thing, and it is going to be worth it, but this is a very solid rush dungeon in my opinion, with some really good rewards, so definitely a really positive part of this update. Alright you guys, so I'm going to touch on the next 2 events briefly here, but unfortunately, considering the fact that I haven't pulled yet, I don't have access to either of these things, so I can't really give you much of an educated opinion, so I'm just going to go ahead and tell you guys what I think right off the bat as a knee-jerk thing, and then later on I'll just do a dedicated video to both of these and we'll kind of break all this stuff down. But we have 2 events that require us to have the new boss syndrome characters. We have a new tower as well as a new time attack. Now with the tower, from what I have been told, and I have received a few images from people on the Discord, so big shout out to everybody who sent me the images so I at least have an idea of what the rewards are. But as far as the rewards for the tower, from what I've been told, and again, I'm just going on what I've been told because I can't go in here, they won't let me. Netmarble, I have a video to make. I'm a YouTuber. Give me access. Anyway. Basically what I've been told, we don't have rubies involved with this thing for the rewards. Instead, what we have things such as purple hammers and summon tickets. Now these summon tickets, from what I have heard, are going to include past boss syndrome fighters, including Gonitz and Leona, as well as past cards. So basically, if that is the case, from what I can tell from these screenshots and what people have told me, that is really, really solid. It is a really cool idea to do that, considering the fact that these characters and cards are no longer available, and they very rarely rerun them, so that's a really nice little addition. In general, the rewards for this thing look pretty solid. It is unfortunate, however, that they decided not to give us any rubies here, so that's one big thing that's kind of a rip, but hey, it is what it is. Now, the time attack challenge. Again, I can't go in here and give you guys any opinion whatsoever, but as you can see, you can get these rubies for playing this thing, so this is going to be a really nice way to get some extra rubies during this event. But you basically need to have both of these fighters or one of these fighters in order to play this, so I can't tell you guys what it's like, you know, as far as actual play style goes with it, but again, I will do a dedicated video down the line. So in general, you guys, I don't necessarily like the fact that they have locked this stuff behind these 2 new characters because they're basically forcing people to pull. However, most people should have some of the time limited rubies from that login bonus recently laying around to pull, so if you get lucky to get one of them during that, then that should make it somewhat palatable. But in general, I'm not as big a fan of this stuff as some might be. I just think that they should probably figure out a better way of doing this stuff if they're going to do this around every limited banner, because that's probably going to get pretty sus pretty quick. But in general, you guys, I can't really give a full educated opinion here because I can't play either of these things yet, so I'm going to say the jury's out and give a big asterisk there for the fact that they are making sure that you have to pull for this stuff in order to be able to play these things, which is, again, kind of So anyway, that's that. And next up here, you guys, of course, we do have the event Codex. Now, they started doing this with the Guilty Gear collaboration, and this is a really nice way of laying all this stuff out. I've already told you guys I'm a big fan of this, so I like to see this return with these new limited banners. But basically, what this is this is going to lay out all the different rewards you're going to get for awakening the 2 new fighters. Now, as far as what we have here, pretty much exactly what we've come to expect for all these characters, so not anything that we really need to talk about as far as the rewards, because they're the same as always. So basically, every time you awaken one of these fighters, you're going to get the corresponding reward. Now, as far as the new stones for the new boss syndrome characters, we'll take a look at those real quick. So for the circle stone here, as you guys can see, this one is going to buff your boss syndrome fighter's strike skills, which is going to be really solid, especially for a character such as BS Nameless, who we'll talk about. I see you, buddy. You're awesome. We'll get there. We'll get there. When it comes to this square stone, this one is going to decrease the enemy's defense for 4 seconds upon landing a boss syndrome fighter's active skill. So another really solid stone there. And then finally, with the hexagon stone, if we take a look here, we are going to be increasing the target's damage received for 5 seconds when a boss syndrome fighter lands an active skill. So that is going to be the stones we have this time around. As far as anything else here, you are of course going to be able to pick up those extra hammers and rubies if you are going big on these characters. So in general, not much to talk about. Standard fare for the most part, but boy oh boy do these characters look awesome. But speaking of characters, let's talk about them. So as per tradition here on the channel, we're going to go ahead and start off with the cards, and then we'll talk about the characters. So the first thing I want to talk about here is going to be the new card set, and that is going to be the Hymn to a Nameless Love. Now, besides the fact that this has some amazing card art for it for all 3 of these cards, this card set is actually very strong this time around. So if we take a look here, it is going to increase our attack by 7% per card, with an additional effect of increasing boss syndrome fighters' burn and darkness damage by 75% and increasing attack by 22% for 7 seconds when a boss syndrome fighter lands a strike skill on a cooldown of 10 seconds. So in general, the card set this time around, if it seems familiar, it's probably because it is. This is basically going to be a 6-star version, upgraded version of what we've seen with some of the previous collaboration card sets. Now, of course, those collaboration card sets were 5-star sets, but in general, this is going to pretty much be an upgraded version of those. So in my opinion, I think that based on that alone, that these are going to be very sought after and probably very popular for several different characters. In particular, Nameless comes to mind with this particular card set, but we'll get there. So in general, guys, this is going to be a card set that I in particular am going to be very excited to get if I can get it. However, I am going to be going harder on the characters than I am on the cards at this point, just based on how much rubies I have and the fact that I need this Nameless in my life. So in general, you guys, this is a really solid card set. I think it's going to be very good for specific characters. It is going to be a card set that I'm definitely going to try and pick up, and I definitely think that you guys should too. But in general, I'm very happy with what we're seeing with this one. So the next thing we're going to talk about here is we're going to talk about the new option card. So this is going to be Forgotten Spring Song, and this is going to be a cooldown reduction card. Yay! So we're going to increase our attack by 5% and decrease our skill cooldowns by 1.2 seconds, but we have the additional effect of increasing boss syndrome fighters' critical damage by 20%. So basically, this is going to be the boss syndrome version of a card we've seen already for the SS characters on their limited banners, and in general, therefore, we can pretty much predict that this is going to be an extremely strong option, but for only particular characters. So that's something you want to keep in mind. This isn't necessarily going to be just a universally amazing card for everybody that's a boss syndrome fighter, but for a lot of them, it's going to be very deadly. This is going to be one that I would highly recommend you pick up a copy or 2 of if you get a chance to. But in general, all these cards are really good, you guys. I don't really have anything negative to say about this card banner whatsoever. Everything here is very solid. Now, when it comes to the finishers, as you guys are going to see, they have brought back the gimmick where you are going to be able to pick up either the attack skill or critical effect for either of these new 3PG finishers. It is random as to which one you're going to get whenever you get one of these cards, so keep that in mind. You aren't going to necessarily be able to pinpoint that very easily if there's a particular effect you want. This is something they introduced with Guilty Gear, and they have continued over the course of the past couple updates, so something to keep in mind. mind. Now, when it comes to the 3 PG finishers, as you can see, Dark Ash is going to have this one here. Now, the special effect on this one is going to increase our attack by 10% and our penetration by 400 for 10 seconds when using Fructidor. So in general, whenever you use this, you're going to increase your attack by 10% and your penetration by 400. You always like to see both of those things on any of your effects. So in general, great stuff. Next up here, we're going to talk about Nameless's 3 PG finisher. This one's going to recover HP by 8% when using it. This is in particular going to be very good for things such as Daimo's base, and in general, that is going to be something that we are going to talk about with Nameless quite a bit, that being Daimo's base and him being a very strong character for it. So in general, you guys, both of these cards are really good for these characters, and they're going to be must pulls if you want to build them out correctly. So in general, everything here for the card banner, in my opinion, from what I'm seeing, very strong stuff. I think that none of it is necessarily like must have to the point where it breaks the game if you don't have it, but I do think that this is one of the strongest card for card banners we've had in a while for Boss Syndrome. So in general, very happy. So next up, characters. We're going to talk about these two guys. First of all, both of these guys look phenomenal, but Nameless is so cool. I'm going to gush over this character when we talk about him. I'm sorry, but I can't help it. However, you're going to have to wait for my gushing, because the first thing we're going to do is we're going to talk about Ash Crazed by the Spiral of Blood, because that's not a weird name. That's totally easily rolls off the tongue, right? Right. We're just going to call him Dark Ash. So Dark Ash is going to be a yellow attack fighter with a leadership ability that increases Boss Syndrome fighters' attack by 60% and decreases their HP by 5%. In general, this is a very good typing, as it is going to be called for high levels of Reviving Hell's Dungeon, and as far as the leadership ability is concerned, that whopping 60% attack increase for your Boss Syndrome fighters is very, very nice. So in general, a really solid leadership skill, and one that you'll probably end up using quite a bit if you get this character. So when we talk about what's under the hood here, the first thing you guys are going to notice is we do have that 30% power charge rate increase, as well as various increases to our crit. This is always going to be a good sign for any character, and in general, this should look pretty familiar. This is going to be a character that is going to be outputting quite a bit of damage, as well as being based on crit for the most part. So in general, you're going to notice that this is going to be a character that's going to be very good for a lot of multi-hits and a lot of damage, but in general, outside of that, he's not necessarily going to be accomplishing that much besides. So as we go through here, we're going to talk about the exclusive cores. So as you guys can see, Time That Turned into Ashes becomes immune to darkness and deals darkness damage equal to 250% of attack to the target upon every successful attack. This is going to be a very, very good core for damage output, but it gets better because he also increases his active skill damage by 140% when Ash is on the team, and increases his HP by 20% when Psyche is on the team. So the nice thing about this, of course, we've seen these types of effects in the past. You don't necessarily have to have the character themselves on the active team. They can be strikers and still get the effects for these link effects. But basically, the most important one here is going to be having Ash on the team. You don't really necessarily need to worry about Psyche as much, being the fact that that's just an HP increase. And outside of things like Daimo's base is not that important, honestly, and probably not even that important there at that point. So in general, he's not really beholden to both of these characters, but you're definitely going to want to have Ash on the team. So in general, that is something that is worth noting. But so far, what you're seeing here is a kit that is going to be predicated upon a lot of damage, darkness, and crits. So that's really good stuff in general. And I think that this character is going to be very, very strong. Now, next up here, we have Unforgettable Duty. You know, this becomes immune to fear with a 20% chance to decrease the cooldowns of Ventos EX, which is going to be the S3, by 100% for 3 seconds upon landing a skill, guard included, on a cooldown of 20 seconds. So the immunity to fear thing is very nice for things such as PvP and PVAI. The 20% chance to decrease the cooldown of his S3 by 100%, so basically just reset the S3, is also really nice. However, in general, that cooldown of 20 seconds is very long for just one skill with a 20% chance, so not anything too crazy there. Now, he does have a PvP exclusive here of casting that critical hit shield that absorbs damage for 7 seconds when attacked if his HP is 40% or higher, and removes the shield upon taking 6 critical hits on a cooldown of 15 seconds. We saw this a ton with the Guilty Gear collaboration. This is an amazing bubble shield. In my opinion, is better than the basic bubble shield, and it is a very strong skill. However, it is only going to be good in PvP. So, not necessarily something you're going to see any type of gains from in PvE, unfortunately, because you don't have access to it, so that's kind of a rip. Now, when it comes to the Volume 5 exclusive core that both of these characters are going to share, they are going to have the version that decreases the enemy's power by 1% every 0.3 seconds when in guard, and gaining super armor for 2 seconds when your accumulated attacks received, guard included, reaches 5 times on a cooldown of 20 seconds. You always like, in my opinion, you prefer to see the increase to your own power, so that isn't necessarily my favorite exclusive core in the world, but it is solid, and we've seen plenty of amazing characters have it, so not that big of a deal. I just personally prefer to increase my own power. So in general, you guys, that is what we have as far as the cores go. Very good stuff overall. You know, in general, this is going to be a character that is going to output a lot of damage. He's going to have that 30% power charge rate increase. Crit is always going to be something that's welcome, but none of this matters unless the skills are good, so let's take a look at those. So starting out with the S1 here, the first thing we're going to take a look at is we are going to see that we are going to increase our attack by 37% for 8 seconds, as well as applying fear to the enemy for 3 seconds upon landing a skill, guard included, and dealing additional damage equal to 140% of attack upon landing a hit on a target in darkness. So breaking all this down one by one, we increase our attack by 37% for 8 seconds. Good. Applying fear to the enemy for 3 seconds upon landing a skill, guard included, also good. And dealing damage equal to 140% of attack upon landing a hit on a target in darkness is really good. So in general, you guys, a super solid skill to start it off, but let's take a look at the S2. Now this is going to be our source of hyper armor as well as interrupt. So as you guys can see, you're going to have hyper armor for 3 seconds with a 70% chance to remove the target's super or hyper armor. So that's always solid for things such as PvP and PVAI. And then this can be used when attacked, and it is limited to standing or airborne. So you always like to see 2 different ways that you can interrupt with these types of skills. Having the hyper armor on there is standard fare for pretty much any of these characters anymore. So overall, like we've always said with the interrupt with the hyper armor, you love to see it on any character you get, and this is going to be a very solid version of that. So great stuff here overall so far. Now on the S3, we do have that increase to the target's damage received by 30% for 8 seconds upon landing a skill, so that's pretty solid, with a PvP exclusive of disabling the target's active skill and rule for 4 seconds upon landing a skill. Talk about completely neutering your opponent, my god. So that is pretty much what we're looking at with the S3. Unfortunately, for PvE purposes, we're not seeing a whole lot there. You know, you're increasing the target's damage received by 30% for 8 seconds, which is nice, but outside of that, you're really not getting much else. So that's pretty much all there is to be said about that. Now, there is one last thing to talk about, because on the core finisher we do have an effect. This is going to increase our attack by a further 20% for 10 seconds, and we have of course already talked about the effect on the 3PG finisher when we talked about the cards. So in general, you guys, as far as Dark Ash is concerned, this is a really solid damage dealer. This is going to be a character that's going to output a ton of damage and probably be very good for places in Guild Raid where you need darkness. He's probably going to be very solid there. However, unfortunately, I don't really necessarily see as many use cases for this guy as I do his counterpart. However, that isn't to say that he's necessarily in any way, shape, or form bad. This is in fact going to be an amazing character, but I do think that he is going to get outshined by Nameless, who we're about to talk about. However, if you're a fan of Dark Ash, you're going to be pretty happy with the damage output, I get the feeling, and being the fact that that's all most people in this game care about anymore is how much damage these characters can do and little else, well, then you're probably going to be very pleased. But outside of that, I don't necessarily see this character as having the most utility in the world, which isn't really necessarily a bad thing. It's more of an indictment on the fact that we have so many characters anymore that are doing very similar things that at a certain point you kind of have to draw a line and go, okay, well, do I really need more of this? And that's kind of where Dark Ash is. However, again, super solid pick, and if you're a fan, definitely pull him because he's going to be worthwhile. So, with all that being said, let's talk about this guy. Man, this guy's cool. Look at this edgelord. Look at that edgy son of a gun. So first up here, we're going to talk about the typing and the leadership ability. As you guys can see, Nameless is going to be a green defensive type fighter, which is going to be very important for high levels of Reviving Hell's dungeon, with a leadership ability that increases green element fighters' attack by 65%. That is a wonderful leadership ability and is going to help him out in a huge way for a lot of different characters out there, because green needed a really good leader like this. So in general, you'll love to see it. A really solid leadership ability. And again, When it comes to the typing, it is called for high levels of Reviving Hell's Dungeon, so therefore it is automatically good. Now, we're going to talk about the cores. Now, when it comes to the cores, you have that 30% power charge rate increase right off the bat, which is really good, and then you're going to have a bit of a mix of different things here. He isn't necessarily going to be as focused on one gimmick as some of these other characters, so you're going to see an increase to the defense, the crit rate, a continuous damage enhanced darkness, as well as burn, and so on and so forth. However, this character's cores are ridiculous, so let's talk about them. So the first exclusive core here is going to make him immune to burn and darkness, which is right off the bat really solid, because those are two very important overall dots that you see on a lot of different characters, in particular burn, so that is really good. And decreasing your active skill cooldowns by 0.5 seconds when attacking a burn target is ridiculous. So as always, whenever you can lower your own cooldowns on your cores, you're in for a really good character. Now, next up, we are going to increase our active skill damage by 200% to targets affected by darkness. Again, a super solid little core, and in general, this entire core is fantastic. So in general, this character already, you can see where it's going, and it's going good places. So now, with the final exclusive core, looking for the truth, we are going to have that bubble shield. Now, this is not the crit version, this is just the normal bubble shield. Either way, it's a broken mechanic, and it's going to be really solid for him. It's going to give him a lot of protection, so great stuff. And then speaking of protection, he is going to recover 1% of his HP upon landing a skill if HP is 70% or lower on a cooldown of 2 seconds. In particular, the first thing that's going to come to mind is going to be Daimo's base with this. This is going to be a super solid overall core, and it is going to be one that I can definitely see a lot of people wanting to test this character in Daimo's base for. So in general, I think he's probably going to see a lot of play there, but this is going to be a character that's going to see a lot of play no matter what. Now, when it comes to the exclusive core for the Boss Syndrome fighters, we've already talked about that, so we don't need to continue on with that one. Now we can go ahead and just take a look at the skills, and we're going to start off here because we do have a charge mechanic on the S1, so let's go ahead and take a look. So right off the bat, you guys are going to see that you can apply fear to all enemies for 3 seconds on a cooldown of 7 seconds, as well as this being an attack that you can use while being attacked. So this is going to be sequestered to only while standing, but that is very important, and it applies super armor while charging. So you're getting a lot of benefits just for charging this thing up. This is really good right off the bat, but let's take a look at what happens whenever you get it charged up, right? So at base, you're going to be increasing the target's damage received by 28% for 7 seconds upon landing a skill, and removing the target's super armor or hyper armor upon landing a skill on a target with super or hyper armor. And then finally, for the fully charged version, you're increasing the target's damage received by 32% for 7 seconds upon landing a skill, as well as removing the target's super or hyper armor upon landing a skill on a target with super or hyper armor. But you are going to also have a PvP exclusive of disabling the target's super or hyper armor for 5 seconds upon landing a skill. Yeah, this character is going to absolutely shred things in Championship, I can tell you that much right there. In general, this is looking really good overall. I'm very happy with this charge skill. This character is looking very solid to start off here. You always like to see these extra effects whenever you're charging, because that gives you a little bit of protection, and having the ability to fear everyone with it, yeah, that's super solid, guys. So the S1 right off the bat is really good, but it gets better because on the S2, as you guys can see, we are going to have hyper armor here for 3 seconds, as well as applying Infernal Flame for 7 seconds, and we're also going to see that this is an interrupt while airborne. So we do have a hyper armor airborne interrupt. Another thing you love to see on any of these characters, like I mentioned with Dark Ash and tons of characters in the past, and you also have Infernal Flame on there, so great stuff. Now next up here, finally on the S3, we are going to increase our attack by 60% of our defense for 7 seconds when using a skill, as well as applying Blackout. So this is also really good. We have a mixed dot coverage here of Burn and Darkness. This is going to make him very relevant for specific things in Guild Raid, as well as other modes in the game. So this is really good, and you do have that whopping 60% increase to your attack based on your defense. So this is a character that might, I don't know yet because I haven't seen any numbers and I doubt there's been many run yet, but this character might enjoy defensive stones. I don't know yet, but maybe this will be the character that ends up making those defensive stones worth it. Time will tell, but I have a hard time believing it ends up happening. Now, finally, On the core finisher, we are going to deal burn and darkness damage equal to 3.2 times of the remaining burn and darkness damage, and remove burn and darkness when attacking the affected enemy. So in general, you guys, this is going to have burn explosion on the core finisher. We've already talked about the effect on the 3PG finisher, but it is nice whenever you have your explosion on a skill where you can control it, because that basically means that you can control when you explode your stuff. So you always want to be able to control your explodey stuff, and that is something that this character can definitely do in spades, being that you don't have to use the core finisher if you don't want to, and you'll be okay. So in general, you guys, that is pretty much what we're looking at with both of these characters. Nameless, in my opinion, is a Uber tier character. I think this character is going to be on the god level with the rest of them, but in general, I think that Dark Ash is probably going to be right there as well. He may end up being on the tier below, but I'm not sure yet. This stuff's only been out for like 2 hours, guys. Like, get off me. So in general, if you're wondering if you should pull for this stuff, I do think that if you're a fan, you definitely want to pull for these characters, because as we've seen in the past, you're probably not going to see any type of stone reruns if these guys ever come back, so kind of keep that in mind. Plus, these characters are not going to get rerun anytime soon, so that's another thing. In general, I think that there is a ton of value everywhere with this. I think that the card banner has a ton of value. I think that the characters are fantastic, and in general, there really isn't anything here that is necessarily bad. I just think that Nameless is definitely easily the better of the two characters. And then when it comes to the cards, the card set, in my opinion, would be a really good, nice to have kind of set. However, if you miss out on it, you're probably not going to hate yourself, but you might end up hating yourself, and we don't want that. And in general, if you're getting the characters, you need the 3PG finishers, so kind of keep that in mind. And then when it comes to the option card, while it is extremely good, I don't think it's a must have, but I do think that you should probably at least try to get one if you can. So that is pretty much what I'm seeing with this stuff, you guys. Of course, whenever I get the characters, I'll have a better idea of what's going on here, but of course you're going to need them for some of these events anyway, so it's really going to be up to you if you want to go ahead and get them. But I do think that the value is there if you find them enticing. So you guys let me know in the comments section down below what you think of the update. The one other thing that I didn't talk about, because we always have this available and it's not necessarily something that is all that important, but basically if we go here, not that one, Dimension Exchange game. If we go here, you guys can see that you can go ahead and combine up to 3 of any of the Boss Syndrome characters' memories for up to 2 generic memories, so kind of keep that in mind. That's what you're looking at there. Otherwise, guys, there really isn't a whole lot else here that I've seen that I need to go over. If there's something I missed, let me know in the comment section down below, and I'll be sure to mention it in the next video. But that is going to do it for me today, you guys. It's like 5:30 in the morning, so I'm going to try and maybe get some coffee in me. So I hope you guys found this informative. Like, share, and subscribe if you enjoy this type of content. Let me know if there's anything I missed or there's anything that you've observed that I don't know about yet, being that this stuff has only been out for a couple hours, and by the time you guys see this video, you'll have plenty of more time with this stuff, so I'm sure plenty more will come out in the meantime. But anyway, you guys, I'm going to go ahead and record a summoning session. Wish me luck. I'll see y'all tomorrow. Peace.